There is something I have carried in my heart for a very long time, and tonight I feel closer to saying it than I ever have before. Perhaps it is because age changes the way a mother sees the world. When you are young, you believe there will always be another tomorrow, another conversation, another chance to tell the people you love what truly matters. But as the years pass, you begin to understand that some truths cannot remain hidden forever. Some stories become too heavy to carry alone. Before I say anything else, I want you to sit with me for a moment. Imagine we are sharing a quiet evening together. No noise, no distractions, just two women talking honestly about life, love, family, and the things that keep us awake at night. Because what I am about to tell you is not a story about fame. It is not about money. It is not about success. It is about something far more important. If this conversation touches your heart, gently leave a like so I know you are here with me. Subscribe if you enjoy these quiet moments where we speak honestly about love and family. Tell me where you are watching from and what time it is where you are right now. Share this message with someone you love who may need to hear it. And thank you for spending these precious moments with me today. You know, people often look at a successful man and think they understand him. They see the headlines, they see the achievements, they see the photographs, they see the confidence. But very few people ever stop and ask what lives inside his heart when nobody is watching. That is true for my son. There is something he has hidden from almost everyone, and it is not what most people would expect. It is not a business secret. It is not a professional dream. It is not some mysterious plan for the future. What he has hidden is much more human than that, much more fragile. It is the part of himself that still longs to be deeply understood. As a mother, I have watched him from the very beginning. I remember the little boy who would disappear into his thoughts for hours. Even then, there was a loneliness around him that few people noticed, not because he was unloved. He was loved deeply, but because some people experience the world differently. They feel everything intensely. They think constantly. They dream endlessly. And sometimes those gifts create walls that other people cannot see. Have you ever felt that way yourself? Have you ever walked into a room full of people and still felt alone? Have you ever smiled while carrying emotions nobody around you could understand? I think many women have. That is why I wanted to speak to you tonight. Because I believe there are women watching who understand something about loneliness. Women who have spent years caring for everyone else, while quietly carrying their own hopes and disappointments. Women who know what it feels like to love deeply and still wonder if they are truly seen. And perhaps that is why the subject of love has become so important to me. When I think about my son, I do not think first about what he has accomplished. I think about what every mother wants for her child. I think about peace. I think about companionship. I think about the comfort of coming home after a difficult day and knowing someone genuinely cares about your heart. That kind of love cannot be bought. It cannot be manufactured. It cannot be forced. And yet it may be the most valuable thing in the world. Many years ago I believed that finding love was mostly about attraction. Like many young women, I thought chemistry was enough. I thought excitement was enough. I thought shared interests were enough. Life taught me otherwise. Real love reveals itself slowly. Real love appears when life becomes difficult. Real love shows itself when dreams fail, when plans change, when disappointment arrives unexpectedly. The woman who stands beside a man during his hardest moments tells you more about love than 1,000 romantic words ever could. That is one reason I think so carefully about the future. As mothers grow older, they begin to see time differently. We start wondering who will be there when we are no longer able to protect our children. We begin asking questions that nobody else asks. Who will understand his silences? Who will recognize when he is hurting without him saying a word? Who will remind him that he is loved when the world feels heavy? Who will care about the man behind the public image? These questions stay with me, not because I worry constantly, but because love naturally thinks ahead. Perhaps you understand that feeling. Perhaps you have looked at your own children and wondered what their future relationships will be like. Perhaps you have prayed quietly for their happiness. Perhaps you have hoped they would find someone kind. Kindness becomes more beautiful as you age. Did you know that? When we are young, we often chase excitement, but later in life we begin appreciating gentleness. We begin appreciating patience. We begin appreciating people who make us feel safe rather than impressed. I often think the world underestimates kindness. People celebrate intelligence. People celebrate ambition. People celebrate achievement. Yet kindness is what holds families together when everything else begins to fall apart. If I could choose one quality for the woman who enters my son's life, it would not be beauty alone. Beauty changes. Time touches all of us eventually. It would not even be intelligence alone. It would be kindness. The kind of kindness that remains during disagreements. The kind of kindness that survives difficult seasons. The kind of kindness that says, I am still here, when life becomes complicated. Tell me something honestly. Do you believe true love still exists? Not perfect love, not storybook love, not the kind we see in movies, but real love. The kind that grows stronger through years of shared experiences. The kind that chooses commitment, even when emotions rise and fall. The kind that creates a home rather than simply a relationship. I still believe it exists. Perhaps that makes me old-fashioned, but I do. And that belief is connected to the secret I have carried in my heart for so long. You see, beneath all the accomplishments, beneath all the responsibilities, beneath all the expectations placed upon him, my son has always carried a hope that very few people know about. A hope so personal that even speaking about it now makes me emotional. Because every time I think about it, I remember a conversation that changed the way I saw him forever. It happened during a quiet moment when there were no cameras, no interviews, no distractions, just a mother and her son. And what he told me that day is something I have never forgotten. The words themselves were simple, but the meaning behind them revealed a part of his heart that almost nobody has ever seen. When I heard those words, I suddenly understood why some of his choices made sense. I understood why certain disappointments affected him so deeply. I understood why love remained such an important part of his journey, despite everything else happening around him. And as I sat there listening, I realized he had been carrying this feeling much longer than anyone realized. That realization stayed with me long after the conversation ended. In fact, it still stays with me tonight. Because the truth he shared was not really about him alone. It was about something every human being desires. Something every woman watching probably desires too. To be understood. To be accepted. To be loved without needing to pretend. And the more I thought about his words, the more I began wondering whether the right woman was already somewhere in this world, living her life, completely unaware that her path might someday cross with his. That thought has never left me, because sometimes love arrives when neither person is expecting it. Sometimes the most important chapters of our lives begin on completely ordinary days, and sometimes the person we have been searching for is much closer than we realize. What happened after that conversation made me question everything I thought I knew about destiny, timing, and the strange ways love enters our lives. And that is the part of the story I have never told publicly before. I remember sitting quietly after that conversation, staring out the window long after my son had left the room. Mothers experience moments like that throughout their lives. Moments when a single sentence suddenly rearranges years of memories. Moments when pieces of a puzzle finally begin fitting together. What he told me was not dramatic. It was not the kind of statement that would make headlines. Yet it revealed more about his heart than any public interview ever could. The truth is that people often assume a man becomes less vulnerable as he becomes more successful. They imagine that achievement somehow protects the heart from disappointment. But life does not work that way. If anything, the heart becomes more exposed because expectations grow larger. Responsibilities grow heavier. The number of people who truly know you becomes smaller. That is something many women understand instinctively. Have you ever noticed how lonely strength can sometimes feel? People come to you because they believe you have answers. They depend on you because they trust your stability. They admire your resilience because they have seen you survive difficult seasons. Yet beneath all of that there remains a very human desire to lean on someone else's shoulder once in a while. I think many strong people secretly carry that desire. My son is no different. One of the greatest misunderstandings about love is the belief that powerful people need it less. I have never believed that. In fact, I think the opposite is often true. The more responsibility a person carries, the more precious genuine love becomes. Not admiration, not attention, not praise. Genuine love, the kind that sees your flaws and stays. The kind that sees your fears and stays. The kind that sees your exhaustion and stays. As a mother, I have spent many nights thinking about this. not because I am searching for perfection. Perfection does not exist. Every relationship will encounter misunderstandings. Every marriage will face difficult seasons. Every family will experience moments of pain. What matters is not perfection. What matters is willingness. Willingness to understand. Willingness to forgive. Willingness to grow together. When I imagine the woman who could truly bring peace into my son's life, I do not imagine someone who agrees with him about everything. That would be impossible. Strong minds naturally challenge each other. What I imagine instead is a woman who possesses emotional wisdom. There is a difference between intelligence and wisdom. Intelligence helps us solve problems. Wisdom helps us understand people. And understanding people is one of the rarest gifts in the world. Tell me honestly, have you ever met someone who made you feel completely understood? Not partially understood. Not occasionally understood. Completely understood. Someone who listened beyond your words. Someone who recognized emotions you were trying to hide. Someone who noticed the sadness behind your smile. Those connections are rare. When they happen, they change us forever. As I grew older, I learned that lasting love is built less on excitement and more on understanding. Excitement comes naturally in the beginning, but understanding takes time. It takes patience. It takes thousands of conversations and countless acts of grace. I sometimes wonder whether modern life has made people forget this. Everything moves so quickly now. Relationships begin quickly. Conversations end quickly. People form opinions quickly. Yet the deepest forms of love grow slowly. Like roots beneath the soil, they develop quietly before anyone notices them. The strongest relationships are often the least dramatic. They are built through ordinary moments. Morning conversations, shared meals, unexpected laughter, comfort during difficult days, simple acts of loyalty. Those small moments eventually become the foundation of something extraordinary. That is what I wish for my son. Not a perfect life, not a perfect relationship, a meaningful one. There is a difference. Meaningful love allows two imperfect people to create something beautiful together. And when I think about that possibility, I find myself imagining the woman who might one day become part of our family. Perhaps she is watching something like this tonight. Perhaps she is sitting quietly after a long day. Perhaps she has experienced heartbreak. Perhaps she has wondered whether true love still exists. Perhaps she has spent years giving more than she received. Perhaps she has carried invisible wounds that nobody else knows about. Life leaves marks on all of us. No one reaches adulthood without scars. The question is not whether we have scars. The question is whether we allow those scars to make us bitter or compassionate. I have always admired compassionate women, women who choose kindness after disappointment, women who choose hope after heartbreak, women who continue believing in love despite everything they have endured. That kind of strength is extraordinary, and perhaps that is why I feel emotional speaking about these things. Because when people discuss relationships, they often focus on appearances, status, or compatibility. Yet the qualities that truly sustain love are much deeper. Patience, humility, forgiveness, gentleness, loyalty, trust. Without those things, even the most exciting relationship eventually struggles. With those things, even difficult seasons can strengthen a bond. I learned that lesson many years ago. Life taught me that relationships are not measured by how often we smile together. They are measured by how we treat each other when life becomes difficult. Can you still be kind when you are disappointed? Can you still listen when you are hurt? Can you still choose understanding when misunderstandings arise? Those moments reveal the true character of love. As a mother, I notice these things more now than I did when I was younger. Age changes what you value. You begin paying less attention to what shines brightly, and more attention to what lasts. You begin appreciating sincerity more than charm, consistency more than excitement, character more than appearance. And when I think about the future, those are the qualities I hope surround my son. There is another reason this subject means so much to me. Every mother eventually reaches a stage of life when she realizes she cannot protect her children forever. That realization is difficult. No matter how old your children become, part of you still sees them as the little boys and girls they once were. You remember scraped knees. You remember bedtime stories. You remember tears that could be solved with a hug. Then suddenly decades pass. They become adults. They build lives. They make decisions. and you realize your role has changed. You can no longer walk every path beside them. You can only hope they find people who genuinely care for them. That hope lives inside every loving mother. Sometimes I wonder if women fully understand how much mothers think about these things. Not because we wish to control our children's lives, because we wish for their happiness. There is a profound difference. The older I become, the more I understand that happiness rarely comes from achievements alone. Achievements create opportunities. Love creates meaning, and meaning is what gives life depth. That is why the secret my son shared with me affected me so deeply. Because hidden beneath all the expectations surrounding him was a longing that sounded surprisingly familiar, a longing shared by millions of ordinary people, to come home and feel understood, to share dreams without judgment, to experience affection without conditions, to build something lasting with another human being. Those desires are not signs of weakness, they are signs of humanity. Perhaps that is why they moved me so much. For years I carried those words quietly. I watched life unfold. I watched successes come and go. I watched challenges appear unexpectedly. And through it all I kept remembering that conversation. Sometimes a mother notices patterns nobody else sees. Sometimes we recognize unspoken emotions hidden beneath ordinary moments. And over time I began realizing there was another layer to what he had told me. Something even deeper. Something connected not only to love, but also to fear. Because wherever genuine love exists, vulnerability exists too. You cannot truly love without risk. You cannot truly open your heart without uncertainty. You cannot truly trust someone without the possibility of disappointment. That is the price of meaningful connection. Many people avoid that risk. They protect themselves. They build walls. They convince themselves they no longer need anyone. But deep down, most hearts still hope. Most hearts still wait. Most hearts still dream. And what I eventually discovered about my son's hidden struggle made me understand why love had remained such a complicated journey for him. The realization came during another conversation years later. A conversation that revealed the fear beneath the hope. The fear beneath the longing. The fear he rarely allowed anyone else to see. When I understood that fear, everything suddenly made sense. And what it revealed about the human heart is something every woman watching may recognize in herself as well. Because the fear was not unique to him, it is one of the oldest fears in the world, and it changes the way people love more than they realize. The fear I am speaking about is not the fear of failure. Most people assume successful people fear losing what they have built. They imagine that money, status, or reputation are the things that keep them awake at night. But as a mother, I can tell you something I have learned after many years of watching people from every walk of life. The deepest fear is rarely about losing success. The deepest fear is about losing connection. It is the fear of giving your heart completely and discovering that it was never truly understood. It is the fear of standing beside someone and still feeling alone. It is the fear of loving deeply while wondering whether that love is being received with the same sincerity. That fear exists in countless hearts. Perhaps it exists in yours. Perhaps there was a time when you trusted someone completely. Perhaps there was a time when you imagined growing old beside someone. Perhaps there was a time when your future felt certain. And perhaps life surprised you. Life has a way of doing that. The older I become, the more I realize that nearly every person carries invisible grief. Some people hide it behind smiles. Others hide it behind accomplishments. Others hide it behind busyness. But it remains there, quietly shaping the way they see the world. My son has experienced his share of disappointment, just as many people have. And through those experiences I believe he learned something that many women learn as well. Love cannot survive where authenticity does not exist. You can impress someone without being authentic. You can attract someone without being authentic. You can even build a relationship without being authentic. But eventually truth always arrives. Eventually masks become exhausting. Eventually people long to be loved for who they truly are, not for what they achieve, not for what they provide, not for what they represent, for who they are. That desire sits at the center of every meaningful relationship. And that is why I have spent so much time thinking about the woman who could genuinely bring peace into my son's life. Not because she would complete him. I do not believe another person completes us. I believe the right person helps us become more fully ourselves. There is a difference. Healthy love does not erase individuality. It protects it. It nurtures it. It encourages growth while providing stability. When I imagine such a woman, I do not imagine perfection. I imagine warmth. I imagine sincerity. I imagine a woman who understands that every strong person occasionally needs gentleness. I imagine someone who values conversations more than appearances. Someone who understands that trust is built slowly. Someone who recognizes that loyalty is demonstrated through actions, not promises. And perhaps most importantly, I imagine a woman who still believes in love despite everything life has taught her. That last quality may be the rarest of all. Because disappointment can easily transform into cynicism. Heartbreak can easily transform into fear. Loss can easily transform into emotional distance. Yet some women somehow maintain their capacity to love. They remain open-hearted. They remain compassionate. They remain hopeful. Those women inspire me. Maybe you are one of them. Maybe life has tested you repeatedly, yet you still choose kindness. Maybe people have disappointed you, yet you still believe goodness exists. Maybe your heart has been broken, yet you still believe healing is possible. If so, never underestimate the beauty of that strength. The world often celebrates visible accomplishments, but emotional courage deserves celebration too. It takes courage to remain loving after pain. It takes courage to trust again. It takes courage to hope again. And it takes courage to open your heart when there are no guarantees. Love has always required courage. That truth has never changed. Sometimes people ask me what I want most for my son. The answer is remarkably simple. Peace. Not the absence of challenges. Not the absence of responsibilities. Peace. The kind that comes from knowing someone genuinely cares. The kind that comes from emotional safety. The kind that comes from mutual respect. The kind that transforms a house into a home. I think many women want the same thing. After enough years pass, priorities become clearer. You realize that constant excitement is not the same as happiness. You realize that admiration is not the same as intimacy. You realize that attention is not the same as love. Real love is quieter. It appears in consistency. It appears in patience. It appears in small daily choices that often go unnoticed. A comforting hand during a difficult moment. A thoughtful conversation after a long day. A willingness to listen. A willingness to forgive. Those moments rarely make headlines, yet they create the strongest relationships. When I look back on my life, those are the memories that matter most. Not achievements, not recognition, human connection, family, love, shared moments. The feeling of belonging, those things become increasingly precious with time. Perhaps that is why I finally wanted to share this hidden truth. Because before life reaches its final chapters, we begin understanding what truly matters. We stop pretending that success alone creates fulfillment. We stop chasing things that impress strangers. We start focusing on the people who make our lives meaningful. And if there is one lesson I wish every woman watching could carry with her tonight, it is this: never believe your capacity to love is a weakness. The world may sometimes reward hardness, but families are built through tenderness, relationships survive through compassion, hearts heal through understanding. Love remains one of the greatest forces in human life. Protect it, value it, nurture it. Do not allow disappointment to convince you otherwise. Because somewhere in this world, there are people still searching for exactly what you are capable of giving. Understanding, kindness, loyalty, hope, the qualities that seem ordinary, are often the most extraordinary. And perhaps that is the secret I wanted to reveal before it was too late. The thing my son hid from everyone was never a business plan, a strategy, or a dream about the future. It was something much simpler, something deeply human. Beneath every achievement, every responsibility, every expectation, there remained a quiet desire that millions of people share. To love, to be loved, to be understood, to find a partner who sees the soul beneath the surface, a partner who remains present when life becomes difficult, a partner who helps transform ambition into meaning and success into fulfillment. That desire is not weakness, it is humanity. And if you are watching tonight wondering whether love still exists, whether meaningful connection is still possible, whether your heart still has value after everything you have experienced, I hope you remember this conversation. Because love has never belonged exclusively to the young, hope has never belonged exclusively to the fortunate, And meaningful connection has never belonged exclusively to the lucky. It belongs to those who remain open enough to receive it. Sometimes the greatest act of courage is simply refusing to give up on love, refusing to let bitterness win, refusing to let disappointment define your future, refusing to close your heart. Life may surprise you when you least expect it. The next meaningful conversation may arrive unexpectedly. The next chapter may begin quietly. The next person who changes your life may already be walking toward you without either of you knowing it. That possibility is beautiful. And as I sit here sharing these thoughts, I find comfort in that idea. Because the future remains unwritten. New beginnings remain possible. Love remains possible. And the most extraordinary chapters often begin when we least expect them.